Hey, this is Nick Milvoy.
And this is Jason Shadrick.
And this is the 100 Guitarists podcast, where each week we talk about one of the 100 guitar players that we think you should know. Jason, why don't you do the honors today?
All right,
Tell us who we're talking about.
We're talking about some might call the mayor of Nashville, Nashville's favorite grandpa. We're talking about Vince Gill, who became super famous in the 80s and 90s, probably mostly the 90s is when he kind of broke through. Incredible guitar player. One of the all-time, like Mount Rushmore, I think, country guitar players. And as we talked about a little bit with our guest today, Jed Hughes, even people who might not be the biggest country music fan just kind of they have a bigger appetite for Vince Gill than, say, the average guitar fan. So, and
yeah, we talk about this in the episode, but if you're looking at this episode, you're checking it out, you think, I don't know a lot about country music. I don't know if that's my thing. I will tell you that I don't either. My tastes run towards older country. 80s, 90s country is not in my wheelhouse. I learned a lot in prepping for this episode and in talking to you about this and in talking to Jed about this. I would say stick around. Check it out. Vince is an excellent guitar player. There's a lot of varied stuff in his catalog. Like, great song. For me, I think about radio stuff. That's the way I was exposed to that era of country the most. And I'm not thinking about guitar solos then, but there are a lot of really great guitar jams in Vince's catalog. And that's modern country songs with guitar jams and some throwback stuff that's like really excellent. Really, he knows that vocabulary.
Yes.
So I got a lot from the, sometimes we talk about people we know really well, and that's its own type of fun. This was a situation where I learned a lot from you guys.
And we picked Jed for a couple reasons. One, excellent guitar player, excellent musician. Two, he's played on the last couple Vince Gill records, at least. And three, he's going out on tour. He's in Vince's band. He's going out on tour this summer. We're going to put a link down below where you can check out Vince's tour dates. It's going to be Vince. The guitar players in the band are going to be Vince, Jed, and Tom Bukovac.
Pretty
so
solid
if
lineup.
you want to, that's a big night of guitar, and Vince plays long shows. There's no opening act. So pack a lunch, show up early, stay late.
All right. So before we move on and talk about Vince with Jed, we want to remind you that you can get at us by shooting us an email over to 100guitarists@premierguitar.com. We get lots of messages over there, even if it's not something that's about the episode coming up that you want us to read. We love to just hear. We get a lot of comments and thoughts on the podcast, and we love to hear that stuff. You know what else we love to hear? We love when we see that we've gotten a rating or we get some new subscribers. So please, wherever you're checking this podcast out, whether it's on your podcast app, whether it's on the Premier Guitar YouTube page, subscribe, and if you have a second, quick review.
That's right.
It could be 2 words, cool podcast, whatever you got. You can also leave us a voicemail and send us a text, especially if you want to be a part of the episode. We'll read your text or play your voicemail. The number is 319-423-9734.
And today's episode is sponsored by EMG, and they're giving you a special deal. If you use the code EMG100, you get 15% off at checkout. So the EMG pickups have been made in California since 1976, when Rob Turner invented active pickup technology. And active pickups offer low noise benefits that are consistent across any stage or in the studio.
EMG pickups have been used by artists including Metallica, David Gilmour, Prince, Steve Lukather, Living Colour, Judas Priest, Zakk Wylde, Slayer, Les Claypool, and so many others. And you know what? You're going to recognize a lot of those names from the 100 Guitarist podcast, which I think is going to tell you something.
Yep.
EMG's solderless wiring kit comes with any new pickup, and it makes it really easy to install yourself, and they offer great customer support for their products. So head on over to EMG's site, enter EMG100 at checkout.
There we go. All right, so let's get to our interview now with Jed Hughes, where we talk all about Vince Gill. All right, today we have Jed Hughes joining us. Jed, thank you so much for hanging with us today, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for the invite.
Thank you, Jed.
Yeah, good to see you guys.
So when we saw Vince Gill's name on our list here, only a few names came to mind, and you were at the top of the list. So we're so glad to have you join us. And the reason I reached out to you, a couple reasons. One, you got a new album coming out, which we're going to talk about in a second.
Yeah.
2, you've played on some of Vince's records.
Yep.
And this summer, you're going out on tour with Vince.
Yeah. All things Vince in our house. Yeah. My son likes to say, Daddy, is Vince your boss like Ron is Mom's boss? And I'm like, well, kind of.
Yeah, right?
At least this summer he is.
So you're from, people can't tell you're from Australia, grew up in Australia.
Yeah.
When you moved to Nashville, when did you first cross paths with Vince in Nashville? Was it at the grocery store?
It was Vince and I were on the same label. My dream as a kid was to be on MCA Records because Vince was on MCA Records, and I idolized him from a very young age. And that happened to pan out for me. So when I was 21 or 22, I got signed to MCA, and I was like, well, my dreams are coming true. And we played this radio seminar, this big show that happens every year where they invite all the radio programmers from across America to come and see new artists that are playing. And I was one of the new artists. And Vince kindly came down to my little show, or a big show. It was actually kind of nerve-wracking deal, and sat in and played guitar with me on a song, a version of Luxury Liner that I'd recorded on my first record. And that was the first time I met him. I mean, he showed up. He showed up with a Telecaster and a deluxe reverb, and that was it. It was incredible.
That's amazing.
Yeah, he's a good man.
So he seems like he's really into championing young talent.
Yeah.
So you met him at this seminar. How many of his records have you played on?
I've played on the last couple.
Okay.
Maybe 2. Definitely the last 2. Maybe 3. I can't remember.
And this first interaction where you guys played Luxury Liner, what year that we're talking?
That was 2004.
All right. So
Yeah.
a good 20 years.
Yeah.
20 years ago. When you were growing up in Australia, what were the tracks that you heard from Vince from a guitar perspective?
Yeah.
That really caught your ear, and you realized that, oh, this guy just wasn't a pretty voice and some great songs. He could really, that's him playing the solos on the record,
Yeah, the first thing I heard was that song Liza Jane. And I heard it via a music video, which looked like the most fun anybody could ever have. It was like in a golf, like a golf club late at night with all his buddies playing a Blackguard Telecaster. And I noticed in the video, like when the solo happened, it was him playing this, what looked like his hands playing the solo in the video. And the sound of the Telecaster was so amazing. I was like, wow, that guy actually plays his own guitar solos. Like, that's cool. I'd never, at that point, 10-year-old kid, whatever I was, 9 or 10, I was like, I didn't know people did that or could do that, And my mom was pretty sweet on Vince, as a handsome man. And so she started buying all his records, or CDs back then, and they would show up, and I would read the credits, and sure enough, it was Vince Gill playing guitar, and when I heard the guitar solo, and Whenever You Come Around,
One More Last Chance,
Pretty Little Adriana, like that solo, that lyrical Stratocaster sound, I was just blown away. I was like, this guy writes his own songs, sings like a bird, and plays guitar like nobody else. It blew my mind. I was like, that's what I want to do.
Yeah, those 90s Vince records are undefeated.
Yeah.
That's what
they hold up.
I think he said several times that's probably bought him a house or two.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now Nick here, as he will admit, is probably not as familiar with Vince's catalog.
Yeah.
So he's going to be taking the role of maybe the listener who is coming in to learn more, much like I do as well. Although I have listened to a fair amount of Vince Gill. So
Sure.
Nick, as you were preparing for this, what were some things that caught your ear that you discovered about Vince's playing?
So I know some of the hits. You know, I don't live under a rock. I had some exposures to 90s country rock, 90s country radio.
Yeah.
But like you said, I didn't see the videos. So like you were saying, like he played his own guitar solos, like that stuff just didn't connect with me at the time. And I know even hearing about that, I'm like, wow, I wish I had connected with that, because I know that there was a point in my own like guitar formation where I really liked older country. I really liked hearing guitar heavy country all the way through the 70s. And then once it got to the slicker stuff from the 80s on, I couldn't connect with it. And I feel like the guitar playing was a big part of that, but I didn't it's that I just didn't hear the stuff that had guitar solos. I was hearing, I know that here in Philadelphia where I grew up, I feel like my memory, and I could be wrong, but my memory as a teenager of hearing country radio when I would hear it, and I did hear a lot of it, was just, they were just playing ballads and stuff, not stuff with guitar solos. And I feel like getting directed to that stuff is probably a really important part, because listening now, I'm listening like I would have eaten this up, like I would have loved this, and I do love it now, but it's like I wish I had gotten that vocabulary at an earlier time. So, you know, so if I'm just gonna listen to something now, I'm like, all right, Jason, Vince Gill, like tell me the good stuff, tell me where to go. And immediately I listened to, I think the first thing I listened to is the Vince Gill, Paul Franklin stuff, which I had heard before, that, you know, that stuff. I think
especially Bakersfield,
records,
I think.
Yeah.
I think both those records, when they came out, I did check them out, and it's like, yeah, those are great. But like, that's a different thing, because it's a throwback thing, right? Like, and I love the thing that it's throwing back to, and I can listen to them like, okay, Vince Gill is an excellent, super highest level of country guitarist, but I want to hear him not just doing the old timey thing, because that I'm just gonna love immediately if somebody's like executing that on a high level. So I think Jason pointed me to Guitar Slinger next.
Oh yeah,
great. That was great. I loved that. And Jason, you also sent me a video of him playing Liza Jane, and then it was like, okay, there's like a whole thing here. Like I'm clearly like naive to the whole Vince Gill thing. So since I've listened to a lot of records, but my best experience has been watching YouTube videos. And you know, searching Vince Gill guitar solo.
There's so many good ones.
There's version of like
so many good ones.
Like you've seen, I'm sure, Jed, that video of him with the Players with Brent Mason.
I don't know if I have seen that.
There's some good ones on there. He plays Liza Jane, plays some other ones. Anything. So any version of Liza Jane you can dig up, great. Any version of Oklahoma Borderline, which is that video you sent me earlier today, Nick.
That was amazing.
That's off his first record. That was off his first record.
Yeah.
I did listen to his first record. I dug that. That was there's some really great guitar playing on there.
Yeah, it's insane.
So Jed, when you're, you know, after a Vince show, when you haven't heard enough Vince Gill solos and you're on the tour bus this summer, what Vince Gill record are you going to be blaring in the tour bus just to hear more Vince Gill guitar?
You know, one of my favorite ones that I feel like doesn't get a lot of attention is High Lonesome Sound. What's amazing to me about Vince, that I don't know a lot of other guitarists that have been able to do this. Vince has an identifiable sound on a Telecaster and an identifiable sound on a Stratocaster, and they're two different sounds. And they're almost two different styles in a way. I mean, there are things that cross over, but when he plays that lyrical Stratocaster stuff on things like
is that a Strat on Adriana?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, on Adriana, and there's another beautiful ballad on that record. We play it every now and then.
Like Worlds Apart, maybe?
Yes, Worlds Apart. And then you have those tracks on that record, and then you have things like High Lonesome Sound, which is like just blazing, cool, clean Telecaster. It's amazing to me that he has those two modalities tonally. that record, you get both those worlds, and then you get like a bluegrass acoustic version of High Lonesome Sound with Alison Krauss and Union Station, and then you realize he can do that too, and I can't remember if he plays mandolin on that track. He's a killer bluegrass mandolin player. I mean, because he comes from that bluegrass world. It's like the guy can do everything we want to do so well at such a high level.
It's just not fair sometimes.
It's not fair.
Can you just be a great singer or just be a great guitar player? Or
Yeah. And you know what I love, man, about seeing him at the Opry and things like that is everyone knows that when he hits the stage, it's going to be great.
It's showtime.
It lifts the bar. It has to, because he's such a good singer and such a good guitar player. And through his whole career, what I admire the most about Vince, his consistency is like, and you see it when you go look at those videos on YouTube, they're all great.
Yeah.
He always sings his ass off. He always plays his ass off. He always sounds so good. And I feel like the real artists within the genre always acknowledge that when he's around. It's like, oh shit, Vince is here. Like, this is going to be great. I better not suck because Vince is here.
And he has one of the highest approval ratings among, Nick and I have talked to a fair amount of guitar players among tons of genres. And it seems like if somebody who's not, let's say not a country guitar player, it seems like almost everybody's favorite country guitar player is Vince Gill. You know what I mean? Like nobody doesn't like him.
Right.
You know what I mean? We just all listen to various amounts more.
Yeah.
Some just listen to him more.
Yeah.
So you've mentioned
I think it's about getting directed to the right stuff. And once you're directed to the right stuff, for me, it's undeniable.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, if you want some really ripping Telecaster, and it's funny. So we have, we've already made this known, but Vince is on an upcoming episode of another podcast we do called Shred with Shifty with Chris Shiflett.
Oh yeah.
And one of the questions Chris had, which I thought was such a great question, and I will spoil it here, is he's like, how does he get that tone with that Telecaster tone specifically with so little gain? It's almost I think of it like you listen to AC/DC and then you try and replicate that song and then you realize, oh, they're not using as much gain as you would think.
Yeah.
And I think there's like this kind of,
it's shocking, isn't it?
Yeah, right. And I mean, you've played with him in studio and on stage. What do you think is the secret to getting that low gain yet singing punchy Telecaster sound?
Well, it's definitely those hands. You know what I mean? It all starts there. I also think he's always been about that. I mean, he definitely had his rock and roll and still does. Like, I mean, he has as much fun as any of us do turning on an overdrive and getting a great distorted singing lead tone. But like, I think at the heart of where he starts with his sound is just that great classic, clean sound that he just knows how to get, between his, I don't know specifically what he does. I think maybe he rolls back his volume a tad to get some of the natural compression of the pickups.
And I think he probably rolls back his tone just a little bit.
Yeah.
Too, I think is what he said, if I remember right from that interview.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a super bright sound.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's dead clear. Like it's crystal clear on stage, at least, when I hear it coming out of his amp, it's like, it's very beautifully EQ'd, naturally, I think.
So I want to share with you guys two things about Vince's playing that really struck me doing my first deep dive on his playing outside of a song here and there. One, probably maybe the flashier of the two is the way he plays bends.
Yeah.
He does these cascading bend, like he'll play a line where he's going up the neck, and I've seen it in a handful of videos where he's playing a bend into another bend into another bend, and it's like he layers them in a way that it's like, obviously there's a pedal steel thing that he's like inspired by, but it's totally a guitar bend. It's not like a fake pedal steel thing. And it's all in tune. It's always in tune.
Yeah.
And it's all so perfect. And that, the way that he phrases them, I was watching that. It was like, I could spend the rest of my life trying to phrase my bends like Vince Gill phrases his bends. And then the other thing that is related to that, that's a bigger picture thing, is just how he paces his solos.
Yes.
The way that he builds a solo. I was watching a video. It's him and Albert Lee. Let me think about this. Him, Albert Lee, and Keith Urban are trading. And you know, it's a total shred fest. And Vince's first solo is just like so simple and melodic. Like, Albert plays this like blazing stuff.
Yeah.
And then he goes first, and then Vince's first lead is like this patient lyrical thing, and it's really reserved and it's beautiful. And I was like, wow, that's a really, and then it's the second time he comes in, then he's trading with Keith Urban, and he just, the way he does, he takes the same approach and then just opens up in different parts of that, just like really opens up.
Yeah.
And there's just a couple like real hot shot licks in there that like lay it out. Like, and the other guys, everybody sounds great. Everybody is totally amazing and masters of their thing. But the other guys are like guns blazing a lot more. And the way that he builds it, to me, is like so masterful and so just like a perfect craftsman. Yeah. And so between the bends and that, I've been really enjoying like finding these solos that he plays and just like listening for those things. I'm curious what you guys think about those aspects of his playing.
Well, he's such a great vocalist, you know, like his natural pocket and his pitch. It's the same thing on the guitar to me. His natural pocket on guitar and his pitch of his bends. Like Tom Bukovac and I talk about this all the time. Vince is the most in tune string bender we've ever heard. Like, I even thought that when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I was like, I've got to learn how to do that, because
so I'm just pointing out the obvious.
Well, you're right though, but I think it's because the fact he's such a good singer that it resonates with the way he plays, and he plays the way he sings, and he sings the way he plays. It's all one and the same, and because it's at such a high level. You know, often when he's around other people, it's just so good in the moment, and it's usually different to what somebody else, you know, Albert Lee's, like you're saying, you know, who is coming at it from Albert Lee's place, or Keith Urban, or Danny Gatton, or whoever it is. You know, Vince's thing, I feel like, is so connected to his voice that it does sound lyrical, and it does have this phrasing that is unique, because he just has a unique pocket as a human.
And I think it's funny, I'll have guitar students occasionally, they're like, oh, I want to get into a country guitar, and they got a Telecaster, and they'll bring in like a Brent Mason solo. And they're like, I want to learn how to do this. I'm like, well, that's great. Very few people in the world could rip like that. But Vince's solos are so much more approachable, I guess you could say. You know what I mean? Because they're not a million notes a minute. They're super melodic. They take place on big hit songs, you know. And as you work that stuff up, then like a step or two down the road, then we can get into like Hot Wired or whatever. You know what I mean? Right. Like, but to me, when people come to me and they want to learn country guitar, especially in a lead style, Vince to me is like step one, because you can pick it up by ear, you know, without having to have perfect pitch or anything. You can pick it up by ear, and like you said, you want to start to emulate how in tune those bends are. And when you're a country guitar player, if your bends are not in tune, it's game over. There's nothing, you're not going to get anything else together. You know,
especially with a clean sound and a Telecaster.
There's nowhere to hide.
There's nowhere to hide.
So One other thing I looked at as I was preparing for this episode, Jed, is, you know, he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 studio records. And one of those these days counts as 4, because that was basically he just put out 4 records at the same time, right?
Yeah.
So Vince has a lot of songs.
Yeah.
When he calls you up, hey, we're gonna go on tour this summer. Does he give you like a song list, or how do you with such a deep catalog? And I'm sure Vince himself wants to mix things up from year to year. What kind of prep do you take, or does Vince direct you to get ready for a tour like you're going to do this summer?
So I know to go to the well-known things,
the
first,
hits,
you know. Yeah,
right?
There's at least 20 of those that are like, okay, I need to refresh my memory. It's easier for me, I feel like, because I grew up internalizing so much of his music that, you know, it doesn't take as long for me to kind of get that stuff fresh again. And then I know he's probably going to want to do some like really new things that we've recorded on the next record that hasn't come out yet, which, by the way, we cut almost 50 new songs.
What?
Last year.
No, I've heard of people saying, oh, I wrote 50 songs for a record and we'll pick 12. But he not only wrote them, y'all recorded and tracked 50 songs.
Yeah, we spent a few weeks, at least 2, if not 3 weeks, working on new music. And there's some just, such good songs.
You think some of those might sneak in this summer?
Yeah, I think he's going to want to do some of that. You know, I mean, he loves to play, man. I mean, like when we did that Ryman run of shows last fall or the end of summer, you know, we were almost at 4-hour shows each night.
Wow.
He loves to play, and we love to play too. And it's, so that's a lot of songs every night. You know, yeah, you're right. He has so many songs and he loves to play them all. Most of them.
That's so cool.
So does he give you a list ahead of time?
Sometimes, you know,
Okay.
sometimes I'll get like, you know, like I'll get a list of songs from those Ryman shows, like from the last time we got together or something. But you know, I kind of have my little charts and files and lists of songs, master list that I know is a, you know, pretty good place to start. And then as we get into rehearsals for the tour, you know, he'll be, you know, we'll sit down, and if there's something specifically that we don't know that he wants to work up, we'll listen to it at rehearsal, make our own little charts, learn it, work it up.
Mm-hmm. So this summer, if people don't know, not only are you in the band, but Uncle Larry, Tom Bukovac, is in the band as well.
Yeah.
And and I'm sure a lot of this probably goes unsaid because you three have been playing together and have known each other for so long.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to maybe one of the new songs off a forthcoming album, or something he wants to dig up maybe in rehearsal that he hasn't played in a long time that wasn't maybe on a list, like you just said, that you guys listen to and write chart, what are kind of the guitar discussions happening between you three when it's something kind of brand new to you, to the situation, as far as who plays what?
Well, as far as the brand new stuff, Tom and I were both on the sessions on all this new music. So we kind of already have our parts that we probably played on the recordings that we would refresh ourselves with. I think Vince likes having Uncle Larry and me in the band because it takes the pressure off of him having to sing and play so much. He can kind of sit back and let us be rhythm guys and carry the load, and then step in whenever he wants to play a fill or a solo or something.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, we would just sit down, listen to the track. What are the main parts? All right, that's it. Who wants to take it? I'll take it. All right, you got that. I'll be the yin to the yang in the rhythm section, and then and then we'll leave the solos for Vince, and that's usually how we would bite it off, you know.
Mm-hmm. And I asked that question fully knowing that was probably the answer, because a lot of times when you hear people talk about that, the answer is so much more like what you just described, rather than a very, oh, well, Tom usually takes this part or I take this part. You know, it's like the roles are way more loose and improvisatory in a way,
Yes,
than people probably would expect. You know.
Yeah, they really are. I mean, he's just one of those artists that he doesn't want exactly what's on the record all the time. You know, he's much more interested. I mean, he wants us as part of his music because we are so in the moment, and because we play with our ears and our hearts, and we improvise that way. You know, we're not those kinds of players that are like, I mean, I can't even play the same thing twice, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think he kind of likes that, and so there's no like real pressure to play recordings as they are. There's certain things that have to happen that are key sometimes, signature parts of songs, but you know, I think he likes the fact that we are sort of freewheeling personalities in the band, and we can kind of run off and maybe, you know, get a smile out of him or something, something silly on the guitar. You know, I don't know.
How much do you open the songs up from rehearsal, or do you guys stick to the arrangements pretty close when you're out on the road?
We stick to them pretty close. You know, if there are endings and things, you know, there are a lot of endings that have changed over the years. Kind of we need to refresh, like, what's the one we like, and let's remember and make sure we remember it's that way. You know, there are things like that have to happen. But yeah, mostly it's just running through the tunes to, you know, build up that muscle memory again, and kind of get that stuff under our hands. You know, takes a few days with that many songs.
Nick, right after this podcast, are you going to run out and get a Black Artelli?
I wish I could go do that.
You should.
You should, even if it's not like a vintage one. I mean, like, because for me in high school, I was really into Telecaster, and I was also really into Mike Stern. So I ended up just getting a Black Artelli with a humbucker, and I was like, this will be the best of both worlds for me right now. You know
oh man, me too. I was like Black Artelli, Albert Lee, Keith Richards, Vince Gill. Like, I gotta have one.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Right? So Jed, to wrap up this section of our talk, what are the 3 or 4 songs out of Vince's catalog you're either really looking forward to playing again on tour, or really looking forward to watch Vince play on tour?
Yeah. Take Your Memory With You When You Go. When I Call Your Name. Oklahoma Borderline.
I mean, that's an every night song, right? Oklahoma Borderline.
Yeah. That's just so fun to hear him stretch out. I love the shuffles, man. Like, Say Hello is one of my favorite songs that never gets talked about much, but it's such a back shuffle. And then, you know, Liza Jane's always fun because we get to play some guitar solos and step out for a minute. I mean, there's so many good songs.
How much of the show are you playing on electric versus acoustic, or?
It's all electric.
You're playing all electric on the show.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
As far as I know, unless he calls me and says, bring
one just in case. Bring one just in case.
Yeah.
So
I got a question for you, Jed.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you said you came to Nashville, you wanted to be on MCA Records to be on the same record as Vince Gill, and you grew up listening to his music.
Yeah.
Now that you're in his band, are you still in touch with that part of yourself?
Oh,
that,
yeah.
Like, was aspiring towards this thing? And do you ever have to, like, you know, have a meeting between your current self and your old self, and like, whoa, like, we did it.
Yeah, man, I'm still connected to that place because, you know, now that I have kids and, you know, little dreamers in the house, I'm like, wow, you know, like, it really can happen. You know, I mean, I grew up a world away from this place, and I dreamed it, and I worked my ass off, and it happened. And I do think about it. Like, we're actually about to move house, and I found my 4th grade report card the other day, and it has this story in it. I've told Vince about this already. He knows about it. I found this story that I wrote, just this, creative writing story about moving to Nashville, playing on stage, Vince Gill coming up and sitting in with me.
No way, man.
Yeah, I wrote the whole thing, man, and it all came true, and it was like,
talk about manifesting.
Yeah,
right? Wow.
I mean, it can happen, and now, like I was saying, now that we have kids, I'm like, it's a powerful thing if you really believe it, and you tell yourself, and you visualize it, and you work your ass off at it, it can happen.
And you should definitely write a song called Little Dreamers. You should just write that down right now.
Oh, that's a good title. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
I might have to give you a word for a third on that. That's good.
Oh, man. I wouldn't turn it away. So in May, you have a new record coming out.
Yeah.
And so tell us a little bit about that one. When's it coming out? Kind of the general vibe of it.
Yeah, it's coming out May 2nd. It's produced by Rodney Crowell, my good longtime friend. And it's there's a lot of like guest vocalists on the record. Sarah Buxton's on the new single that just came out. She's a sweet dear friend of mine from years ago. John Hyatt's on the record, guests on the record. Rodney's on it. And it's kind of music that I started writing when we were living in Austin during COVID. And I called Rodney up and I just said, hey, I got a pile of songs, would you help me put a record together? And he said, yeah, of course, I'd love to. And so we ended up writing some things together. There's a song I wrote with Guy Clark when I first moved to Nashville. It was amazing how it all happened. I fell in with an incredible group of just artists that I grew up idolizing, like Emmylou Harris and Rodney Crowell and Vince and Guy Clark, who I used to go over to his house and write songs with. And so there's a song I wrote with Guy 20 years ago that's never seen the light of day that I really wanted to record on this record. And it's actually coming out there's a Guy Clark imprint called Truly Handmade Records, which is a small record imprint that's helping, put out some records that aren't signed by, big labels and things, just to help get the music out there and the distribution. It's coming out May 2nd. It's, I'm excited about it. Mm-hmm. It's some of the music I recorded in Austin and then we added a live band to. And then some of the music is just a small live band, getting a good take that felt natural. So yeah, man, I think it's a pretty cool record. I mean, I'm proud of it.
And the title of the record?
It's called Night Shades.
Night Shades. So
and for anybody hearing this before May 2nd, Stay Don't Be Cruel is the first song off the record, and that's out now.
Yes.
Right? And that you can go find the video on YouTube. I listened to it, and I really enjoyed it.
That's right. And we'll put links down below where you can go check out Jed, but also go check out Jed and Tom and Vince, this summer on the road.
Yeah.
And when you mentioned those like nearly 4-hour shows, I saw Vince here in Iowa. I mean, it was pre-COVID. It's probably 6-7 years ago, and no opening act, and he just played all night. And the two guys I was with looking at us like, he's not stopping. He's like, because you kind of sense to get this arc of the show.
Yeah.
And boy, did we misjudge that, because we thought, oh, okay, a couple more tunes, he's probably going to wrap it up here, and then like 45 minutes later, he's like, I'm just going to play a couple more for you.
Yeah.
I'm just going to play a couple more.
He loves to play, man. And it's great because, all of us in the band, by the end of a tour, man, we are ready to kick some ass because we're all so in shape from playing so much,
And it's a big band with 10-piece.
Yeah, it's 11, I think, 11? On this next tour, yeah.
Man, Great band. Highly recommend. Go check it out.
Yeah.
Jed, thank you so much for hanging with us. Good luck with the new album and the tour and everything else, buddy.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
All right, so that was our talk with Jed. I hope you got something out of that, whether you're a Vince fan or you're not a Vince fan, or this is all new to you. I think there's a lot of listening in there. And like I said at the beginning, I got a lot from just like hearing these ideas, hearing different tracks to check out and just doing my homework. So I feel like it's pretty important for you to do your homework too. Listen to Jed's recommendations, listen to your recommendations.
And go see him.
Go see him.
Go see him.
I'll go see him, but he's not coming to Philadelphia.
He's not coming to Iowa either. So he's been in Iowa before. They'll come back around. Last time he was in Iowa, I think I mentioned in the episode. I don't think Jed was in the band. I think it was just Bukovac. And I didn't even know. It was way before Bukovac had a YouTube channel. Mm-hmm. So I didn't even really know what I'd heard the name, and I remember not finding out till later that Tom Bukovac was in the band till like after the show.
That's why those solos are so good.
So let's get to, now we've done that, let's get to what are we listening to, and I have a really good one loaded up, and I'm really hoping it's not the same one you have.
Probably not. Let's hear yours first.
Okay. Flashback. Summer of '99. Young Jason Shadrick was just a few years into playing guitar.
The summer of Santana's Supernatural.
Yes, but I'm pretty sure this event happened before. Okay. And there's this big, have you ever heard of this music fest in Milwaukee called Summerfest?
Summerfest, no.
Huge music festival. It's like, I think now it's 3 or 4 weekends, but before it was like 2.5 weeks. Downtown Milwaukee. They'd have an amphitheater at one end. They'd have the big ticketed events. I remember going to see Dave Matthews Band there one year. And then throughout these like fairgrounds, there's probably 8 or 10 stages that would all have incredible acts all day. And so you pay your admission to get in, which was like, I don't know, $10, $12. And then you could go see, like, I saw Government Mule, Brian Setzer, Susan Tedeschi. I mean, literally hundreds of acts play over this, right? So this one year I go up, some friends of mine were like, hey, we're going to see the Black Crowes. I'm like, all right, I'm in the Black Crowes. Let's go. Oh, yeah, Black Crowes and Jimmy Page. I'm like, I knew who Jimmy. I was like, yeah, of course, right? So we go up and we see the tour with Jimmy Page and the Black Crowes with Audley Freed in the band, which is a very important distinction. Because just now, a number of years ago, they put out a live record, Live at the Greek, which was good. I felt like the mix wasn't great, but it was a nice snapshot of that tour. And to hear Jimmy Page rip on stuff was great.
Yeah. I've always liked hearing the stuff from that. And I remember that was on classic rock radio at the time. And that was a big thing that Jimmy did that.
Yeah. And so they just recently remixed maybe the whole thing and added a bunch of unreleased stuff. 3 hours and 33 minutes.
Wow.
Of Jimmy and the Black Crowes.
All from the one concert.
It could have been 2. I mean, Live at the Greek, probably the one. I thought I read somewhere in the press release that maybe it was also included the Jones Beach show, maybe, but
okay. But no repeats. Like it's one show.
It's one show.
However, got it.
However, you get Soundcheck Custard Pie, Soundcheck You Shook Me, Soundcheck Lemon Song, Soundcheck 10 Years Gone, and a Soundcheck Jam. I mean, 10 Years Gone is like almost 12 minutes long. This might be Jimmy's like last great live performance, because I think his playing is better here than it is on the Zeppelin reunion that happened after that, a couple of years ago. Because he's just letting loose. I mean, he's letting loose, and to hear him rip on like She Talks to Angels, or something like they're playing Black Crow songs too. They play hard.
The live version or the original live album didn't have Black Crowes stuff on it, right?
It just had. That's what. Yeah, this is like a 3-disc box set type deal.
That's very cool.
The first one was maybe a double disc, but it didn't have all this stuff on it. Definitely didn't have the Black Crowes tunes on it, I don't think.
Yeah. Awesome. That's a good reminder. That's been on my radar to check out, but I haven't gotten to it yet.
Listen to Out on the Tiles.
Oh, nice.
Whole Lot of Love's great. Custard Pie. I mean, they kick it off with Celebration Day, and it's rip. And they just play blues tunes, Zepp tunes, and some Black Crowes tunes, the Black Crowes hits. And you can just, like, even with 3 guitar players, Rich, you feel like you can hear that slide Keith Richardsy thing going.
Mm-hmm.
If you hear a guitar solo and it's very precise, let's say, then it's Audley. If you hear it and it's just a little sloppy, but all the feel is there, then that's Jimmy. I mean, it's really fun to pick that out. So definitely recommend Jimmy Page, the Black Crowes, live at the Greek.
Awesome. Looking forward to checking that out. My current listening is it's a very different choice. You're picking a 3.5-hour album. This is a 20-minute EP, also a live recording though. It's called An Evening with Breathwork. Breathwork is a jazz guitar trio, an instrumental guitar trio. I think it's safe to call it a jazz guitar trio based in Burlington, Vermont. The main band leaders are the guitarist and drummer. The guitarist is a guy named Xander Naylor, and the drummer is Ethan Snyder. And these guys have both been around. We've sort of circulated in the same scenes of people for a long time. I've heard Xander since, probably sometime over the last 15 or 20 years, many times, doing some really like awesome experimental stuff. This is more of like they're playing tunes. Playing mostly their tunes. They do a cover of Old Man by Neil Young.
Of course, there it is. There it is.
That's now, here's what I'll say though. If you've listened to this podcast, you may know how big of a Neil Young fan I am. But I'm not a purist at all, but it's like whenever somebody covers one of your favorite things, right? Like you're going to come to it. You're excited to hear it. You might be excited to hear it, but I don't know about you. I come to it a little bit more, not judgmentally, but I'm looking for, I only want the most excellent versions of the songs because I consider myself such an aficionado or something. It's just like when I'm hearing a Neil tune, like there's room to interpret those, but like I want to have a reason to listen to somebody cover this song and not just go, I'd rather hear the original. That's really what I'm saying. Their version of Old Man totally gets me there. It's a whole different thing. It's great to hear this song transformed in this setting. They really open up on it, and Xander's playing on it is super cool. He gets super vibey without entering it. There's no imitative Neil Youngness about it. He's totally bringing his own vocabulary. That's like definitely like jazz informed as much as it is rock informed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the important distinction. I wouldn't want to hear just a straight jazz cover of this, and I think just a straight rock version would be sounding like imitative. So it's like this is its own thing. The drum work on here is fantastic. It's like really high energy, and it goes a lot of places. It's kind of like they get into this like sort of like Pink Floyd jam zone with it, which I think is always a cool distinction with like how you could, E minors and A's and stuff like that. Like those sound really good. Like there's not a big line between like the writing on a Neil Young album and a Pink Floyd album. Anyway, I'm getting
and it's guitar, bass, drums trio.
Guitar, bass, drums. The bass is a guy named Pat Markley on here. But this was a live recording from an album that they released last December. I didn't spend as much time with the album. I heard this. They sent this over my way, and I love the recording of it too. I think that it really captured. I don't know how it was recorded. I'm gonna guess it's like 2 really nice stereo mics, and that captures the vibe that I want to hear. This sort of trio, just like I want to hear this in a live setting. I want to hear just great sounds. Xander has a great guitar tone. I forget what guitar he plays. Anyway, Breathwork, the band.bandcamp.com. You can find it up there. And the EP is called An Evening With. And you can find the EP Amber, the studio recording Amber is up there too.
Dig it.
All right.
Well, I think we did it.
Yep. I think so. Thank you again to EMG for sponsoring this episode. Don't forget, the code is EMG100 for 15% off at checkout. Thank you again to Jed Hughes for coming on, talking about Vince.
And you can get at us at 100guitarists at premierguitar.com. You can text or call us at 319-423-9734. We've gotten a lot of cool emails lately.
Yeah.
Shout out
Emails
to Steven from Germany. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And all right, well, we'll see you all next week when we have another guest.
That's right.
Another guest. We'll see you next week.
Looking forward to it.